Hey, what's up, Exiles? Paycheck here. For today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys my plans for a 0.3 Aurabot Cursebot. This is what I would be league starting with if I was actually going to be around for the league. Sadly, I'm going to be about 4 days late, so I'm going to be a little bit late to the party, but I wanted to get a video out there so that all you support characters would have something to follow as soon as the new league drops. This character has been buffed quite a lot since 0.2. It should be very powerful, makes enemies take a tremendous amount of increased damage from your allies, as well as boosting the damage that your allies actually deal. So it should be very powerful, very tanky. Definitely looking forward to it. So let's go ahead, take a look, and get started. Looking at our gear, there is going to be two unique items that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the Prisoner's Monocle gloves for the slow magnitude that they give. These gloves are very inexpensive, so try to get one with two sockets. Sockets are very, very powerful for this build. The second unique that we're going to be using is the Dojer's Damning Ring. This is for the additional curse that it provides. And everything else is going to be rare. Originally, we were using at Series Disdain helmet back in 0.2, but that has now been removed in favor of a rare. So for all of our rare items, the general priorities, as you'll see, I have listed down here. First, go ahead and cap your elemental resists. That is always priority one as far as your defenses go. After you get your resistances capped, then start stacking as much energy shield as you reasonably can. And then finally, to really enable the support functions of this build, you are going to stack as much mana as humanly possible. The more mana you stack on this build, the more damage your allies will deal. So it's very important. In addition to that, you can get intelligence on all your gear because that also increases the mana that you have. You will need some spirit on both your chest piece and your amulet. There are a couple of different spirit breakpoints that I have listed here. The first one being very easy to achieve at 192 spirit. Literally just finish the campaign and slap on a scepter, and boom, you're already at the 192 spirit breakpoint. So that will allow you to run a blasphemy setup with enfeeble temp chains, a second blasphemy setup with despair, and then also withering presence. The next breakpoint at 246 spirit allows you to run a double dual curse blasphemy setup for quad curse. So you will have your enfeeble temp chains again, and you will now have despair plus elemental weakness added to the setup with withering presence as well. And the final breakpoint that I would plan on hitting is the 290 spirit breakpoint, which lets you run your quad curses, the withering presence, but you can add in heightened curse to one of your blasphemy setups, probably to the despair and Ele weakness, but you could instead run it on enfeeble temp chains if you preferred. The final breakpoint, which I don't know exactly how realistic it would be or how beneficial it would be, to be honest with you. I don't know if it would be worth it. But if you wanted to, you could try to go for 333 spirit, and that would allow you to run a heightened curse setup in both of your blasphemy setups. So you would have enfeeble temp chains, heightened curse, despair Ele weakness, heightened curse, plus withering presence. But not sure if that one's going to be worth it. 290 spirit is more realistic. Outside of that, for your weapon, there are a ton of useful mods. It's going to kind of depend on who you're playing with, what kind of build your carry is playing. Generally, if you're playing with a crit character, you're going to want an Omen Scepter or some scepter that gives you Malice because that increases crit. Or the chance for enemies to be crit. The number one thing that you're going to want on every scepter is going to be the mod allies in your presence deal percent increased damage, because that will affect any ally that you're ever playing with. After that, kind of depends on who it is. Crit chance and crit damage are obviously very useful for crit characters. If not, attack speed or cast speed work fantastic. Flat damage to attacks obviously works for different attack builds. Finally, intelligence again for more mana works great. Um, Outside of that, the only important thing remaining is the sockets that have changed. So there are a few new sockets that are pretty important that we can play around with. So for our helmet, we have the Talisman of Egrin. These are going to be expensive. So plan ahead for that, but they are not mandatory at all. But the Talisman of Egrin, when socketed into a helmet, makes enemies you curse take 5% increased damage. So that is a more multiplier. Um, Now, if you can get a helmet with two sockets on it, then obviously you can put two of these in for curse enemies take 10% increased damage, and you will be cursing the entire screen. So obviously very powerful, but pretty expensive. In your scepter, you have a couple of different options. The expensive option, if you need spirit, is a rabbit talisman for 10% spirit. The cheaper option to gain some additional spirit is the soul core of Azkapa for a flat 15 spirit. If you don't need either of those, a third possible option is the fox talisman for 20% increased presence area of effect. Gloves are one of the big ones. This is why we definitely want two socketed gloves. You have the Venomous Rune of Draining, which has 20% increased effect of Weathered. So, Withered at its maximum has enemies taking 50% increased damage. With two Venomous Runes of Draining, that gets upgraded to 70% increased damage taken for enemies, which is huge. The other option, and probably slightly cheaper, is going to be the Serpent Talisman for 5% curse magnitude. Obviously, you can get two for 10% increased curse magnitude, which is huge considering we're running four curses. For all spare sockets, or if you can't afford any of those, then your go tos are going to be anything that increases your resistances if you need it, anything that increases your energy shield if you need it. So things like iron runes and the chest piece is a good option. And finally, any spare sockets you have, if you don't need more res, you don't need more energy shield, slap in soul cores of Zalato for 2% increased maximum mana to increase the damage that your allies deal. So that should cover it for all the equipment. And now let's go ahead and take a look at our gems. For our gem setup in zero point 0.3, this is going to be looking a little bit different compared to zero point 0.2. In zero point 0.2, you could only use one support gem per character. That limitation has now been lifted. So now we can use the same support gem in multiple different skills, and we're going to be taking advantage of that. So we have our double blasphemy setup here. Our first blasphemy setup, we're going to be running temporal chains, enfeeble, and support gems. We're going to be looking at ritualistic curse for 50% increased area of effect. The downside of ritualistic curse does not apply to our curses since we are running them through blasphemy. So they are auras. They don't have a eruption delay whatsoever. So the downside is completely negated on these. After that, we use encumbrance for a slow magnitude increase, and then finally magnified effect for the more area of effect. The second blasphemy setup that we got, we're running first despair, and then once you get enough spirits, you can throw in your fourth curse setup, which it says conductivity in the written guide. It just has not, the website has not been updated yet. For those of you that don't know, conductivity, hypothermia, and flammability are all being condensed into a single gem called elemental weakness. So your fourth curse is going to be elemental weakness, and that lowers enemy resistances to all elemental types. So elemental weakness is your fourth curse. Again, we're going to be using that ritualistic curse for the big 50% increased area of effect. We're going to throw in the magnified effect for even more area of effect. And then finally, once you reach the 290 spirit breakpoint, you can throw in heightened curse on here for 25% increased curse magnitude. Withering Presence, I throw in Chaos Mastery for an additional level and Persistence. Persistence gives the stacks of Wither 40% increased duration. Correction, 40% more skill effect duration. The Malice Gem, this is from the Scepter. There's a couple of different Scepter options that you can use. Generally, if you're playing with a critical based character, you're going to want to use a Scepter that gives you Malice. So that's where that is. Um, Finally, this last Despair setup that you'll notice that I have down here, this is purely for a single target swap. So you will pretty much only ever do this if you are going against some kind of pinnacle content where you need as much damage as humanly possible. So in that type of scenario, you will remove Despair from your Blasphemy setup and manually curse it. So you'll have Despair, and we link that to Cursed Ground, Ritualistic Curse, Heightened Curse, Magnified Effect, and Persistence. The Heightened Curse is for the increased magnitude. So it's already going to have a stronger magnitude just because it's not linked to Blasphemy. Blasphemy lowers the effect of curses. So having it being self-cast instead increases its magnitude already. The persistence is going to make the skill last longer, which is very useful because with Cursed Ground and Ritualistic Curse, it's going to have a big AoE that just stays on the ground. And so long as the boss stays within that cursed ground, then they will remain cursed. And you only have to self cast the curse again if the boss moves out of that big AoE. So that's purely a single target setup. If you're not doing pinnacle content, you never need to pay attention to that. One big update as far as our gems and curses go. For the 0.3 update, it has been changed how curses affect enemies. So I have a little bit of math for you here to break it down just so that you know exactly what you're getting into and how curses are shaping up to look in 0.3. So at the top here, we have exactly how much these curses affected enemies in 0.2, and then down below is how they affect enemies now in 0.3. So Enfeeble used to be 26% less damage from enemies of normal magic and rare types, and then 16% less damage of unique enemies. Now, with the new curse changes, normal enemies are cursed by 29%, magic by 24.6, rare by 19.4, and uniques by 14.5. So pretty much all of these are roughly the same. You won't notice much of a difference on any of them. The biggest change was against rare enemies on Enfeeble, which dropped down a little bit over 6%. So not a huge difference, not a massive deal on any of that. Not too big of a change there. Temp chains is where the big changes come from. This one was massively buffed to the point where I don't even know if they're going to keep it like this because this just seems insane to me. But the old temp chains affected all enemies by 28% slows. The new temporal chains has normal enemies being slowed by 59%. And this is all just by default, by the way. This is not taking into account all of our curse magnitude and all the other factors of our build. These are just default numbers here. So 59% slow on normal enemies, 50.1% on magic, 41.3% slow for rares, and 29.5% for uniques. So against unique enemies, you won't notice a massive difference, only 28 up to now 29.5%. But that is a huge jump for normal magic and rare enemies. So mapping temporal chains got giga buffed, and that just seems insane to me. So enjoy that. I know I will be. Finally, we have Ele weakness. The old numbers here are just pulled from the old single target, single element curses. They used to lower all enemy resistances by 29%, each individual resist. Now the new curse that combines them all lowers all resistances, not just a single resist, lowers all resistances. And instead of by 29%, it affects normal enemies by 49%, magic enemies 41.6%, rare enemies 34.3%, and unique enemies have their resistances lowered by 24.5%. So you can see against pretty much all enemies, it's a buff except for unique enemies, which got nerfed slightly down to 24.5%. Not a huge deal either way. Enemy resistances are still going to just get absolutely dumpstered with your curses. So, not really a big deal one way or another. So, really, the biggest change here is the temporal chains. I still can't believe that they're going to let that go. Hopefully, that doesn't change. But, anyways, those are the big changes for the curses. So, now let's go ahead. Let's talk about the passive tree and our ascendancies. Starting with our ascendancy tree, we're coming to the left for necromantic conduit for the unholy might buff. This is what enables this character to act like a bit of an Aurabot, because the unholy might buff grants all allies 30% of damage as extra chaos. Right after that 30% damage as extra chaos, we get blackened heart, which says 4% increased magnitude of unholy might per 100 maximum mana. So every time you reach another threshold of 100 flat mana, you increase the magnitude of that Unholy Might buff by 4%. All right. So that is why we want to stack as much mana as humanly possible on our character to increase the damage that we're giving our allies. After that, we're going to get Rupture the Soul. This makes it so that when your allies kill a cursed enemy, which is any enemy on the screen with you in the party, those enemies have a 33% chance to explode, dealing damage in an AoE as chaos. So it very much helps the AoE clear of whatever group you're in. And then the last one is Dominion over Flesh, which has the mod for an additional curse. This is how we get our quad curse setup, because we will get the one from this Ascendancy. We have the one from the Dodri's Damning Ring. We also have one up here from the Keystone Whispers of Doom, and then the one by default, which adds up to 4 and a quad curse. Now, for our passive tree, I'm going to keep this section a little bit shorter because this is the zero point 0.2 passive tree. Like I said, I'm not actually going to be here for the zero point 0.3 league launch, unfortunately. So I won't have time to update to the zero point 0.3 tree exactly, but it should not be drastically different. Okay. There's going to be some extra nodes added, to fill in some of this blank space, but generally things should look pretty similar. So overall, the main things that you're looking for, we're wanting to take the curse nodes, okay, because this is a lot of curse magnitude from Zone of Control, and then up here with Lingering Whispers and Master of Hexes, plus obviously our Keystone Whispers of Doom is right there. So we grab those. We have some big energy shield nodes down here at the start. There's this melding node, which actually reduces your maximum mana. If you feel like you have more than enough energy shield and removing this node puts you above a 100 flat mana threshold, feel free to remove that, but that's a lot of energy shield, so I still take it. I think it's worth it. You have some energy shield nodes up top with enhanced barrier and patient barrier. The aura nodes are mainly over here to the left. They give some aura skill magnitude and presence AoE with bolstering presence and enveloping presence. If you need a little bit of extra spirit, over here, there's this Profane Commander, which gives 5% increased spirit. And then there's these two small nodes for 3 and 2 for a grand total of 10% increased spirit if you need it. If you do not need that spirit to reach your spirit thresholds, then go ahead and remove as many of those points as you can and add those in elsewhere. You can save some points and pick up some additional energy shield. You will want to pick up some stun threshold and ailment threshold nodes based on your energy shield. So things like Eldritch Will and Shimmering Mirage can be very useful. I also found it very useful to add in a little bit of faster recovery of energy shield, or faster start of energy shield, I should say, with convalescence and quick response. Just makes you less susceptible to constantly getting chipped away at. From small chip damage and frequent hits. So that's what I like to add in for a little bit of survivability as well. Finally, sometimes I will take hindered capabilities and chronomancy for the increased slow magnitudes, but temporal chains is so strong in zero point 0.3 that we might not actually need those. So you might be able to save some points there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes there. Um, Could save those, but it's an option for you depending on where they are for the zero point 0.3 tree. But that's basically all you're looking for. Pick up your curse nodes, pick up some aura nodes, and pick up energy shield, stun threshold, and you should be solid. Okay, so I'll keep it there and let's go ahead and move on. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, this video was helpful for you support players out there. Hopefully, the support community will grow a little bit more because it's a pretty dang small community right now. But, anyways, hopefully, you guys got something useful from this. Good luck to all of you in the zero point 0.3 Abyssal League. It looks like it is going to be an absolute blast. It looks so awesome to me. I'm very hyped for it and very bummed that I'm not going to be able to be there during the opening weekend with you guys, but you know, real life calls. I will be back on September 2nd, so a few days after the league launch, to answer any questions and give any updates that are needed or anything like that. Also, be streaming again starting on the 2nd, so feel free to stop by on Twitch, say hi, come hang out. And other than that, yeah, good luck on zero point 0.3, guys. Hopefully the Vols hit big, and I will catch you all next time. Good luck.